Clint Eastwood storms onto Jimmy Kimmel Live, but sparks fly when Kimmel's jabs at Trump ignite a fiery clash. Political divides deepen, insults escalate, and Eastwood's no-nonsense grit leaves Kimmel reeling in a viral showdown that's tearing up the internet. Tonight on Jimmy Kimmel Live, the stage was set for a legendary appearance. Clint Eastwood, the 94-year-old icon, strode out to promote his latest film, a gritty Western that's already generating Oscar buzz. The crowd roared, expecting the usual mix of Hollywood charm and Kimmel's sharp wit. But nobody saw what was coming. From the moment Eastwood sat down, you could feel the tension. Kimmel, with his trademark smirk, opened with a few light jabs about Eastwood's age and his storied career. Clint, stone-faced, nodded along, but his eyes were sharp, like he was sizing Kimmel up. The audience laughed, the band played, and, for a moment, it felt like just another night in Hollywood. Then Kimmel pivoted. He couldn't resist. "So, Clint," he said, leaning forward, "you've been pretty vocal about your politics over the years. You still riding the Trump train? Or have you jumped off yet?" The crowd tittered, some clapping, others shifting uncomfortably. Eastwood's jaw tightened. He leaned back, crossing his arms, and let the silence hang just long enough to make Kimmel squirm. "I'm not here to talk trains, Jimmy," he said, his voice low and deliberate. "I'm here for my movie. But since you brought it up, let's talk about what's real." Kimmel, sensing an opening, doubled down. "Oh, I'm all about what's real, Clint. Like how Trump's been out there, saying stuff that's pretty transphobic, pretty racist. I mean, come on, you're a smart guy. You buying into that?" The audience gasped, some cheering, others murmuring. It was a gauntlet thrown, and Kimmel looked pleased with himself, like he'd just landed a knockout punch. But Eastwood didn't flinch. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and fixed Kimmel with a stare that could have stopped a charging bull. "You want to talk accusations, Jimmy? Let's talk about you, sitting there, throwing around words like transphobic and racist, like they're candy. You got proof, or you just reading the script they hand you?" The crowd erupted, some cheering for Eastwood, others booing. Kimmel's smile faltered, but he tried to laugh it off. "Whoa, Clint, I'm just asking what everyone's thinking. Trump's got a track record, The guy's not exactly a unifier." Eastwood shook his head, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "You call it a track record, I call it steering a country back on course. You think it's easy, fixing what's been broken for decades? You think you'd do better, sitting in that chair, cracking jokes?" The audience was electric now, hanging on every word. Kimmel, visibly rattled, tried to pivot. All right, let's cool it down. Let's talk about your movie, Clint. Tell us about this Western." But Eastwood wasn't done. No, you started this, Jimmy. You want to sling mud, let's talk about it. You say Trump's racist. Where's the evidence? You got a quote, a policy, something solid? Or are you just parroting what your crowd wants to hear?" Kimmel, caught off guard, fumbled. "Well, I mean, there's the Muslim ban, the border wall stuff, It's all out there." Eastwood snorted, a sound that carried years of disdain. "Travel restrictions to keep people safe ain't racism, Jimmy. And a wall? That's just a line in the sand. You want to talk borders, talk about the drugs and crime pouring over 'em. You think that's helping anybody?" The audience was split, half cheering, half jeering. Kimmel, sensing the interview slipping away, tried to regain control. "Okay, Clint, I get it, you're Team Trump. But let's not pretend he's some saint. The guy said some wild stuff about trans people, like they're a danger or something." Eastwood's eyes narrowed. "Wild stuff? You mean like protecting women's sports? Like keeping spaces safe for kids? You call that transphobic? I call it common sense. You want to twist it? That's your game, not mine." Kimmel's face reddened. He wasn't used to being challenged like this, not on his own stage. The band played a nervous riff, trying to lighten the mood, but it fell flat. Eastwood, unyielding, kept going. See, Jimmy, here's the problem. You sit here, night after night, telling millions of people what to think. You call it comedy, but it's propaganda. You don't like Trump? Fine. But don't act like you're the moral compass of America. The crowd roared, a mix of cheers and boos, as Kimmel struggled to respond. Clint, come on. I'm just doing my job. People tune in for a laugh, not a lecture. Eastwood leaned back, a faint smirk playing on his lips. Your job? Your job's to entertain, not to slander a man who's trying to fix a mess you'd never touch. You want to talk about my movie, I'm here. You want to play gotcha with politics, you better bring more than buzzwords. The tension was palpable, the audience buzzing with anticipation. Kimmel, clearly rattled, tried to pivot again, but you could tell he was shaken. Eastwood had turned the tables, and the interview was teetering on the edge of chaos. What would happen next? Would Kimmel push back, or would Eastwood take it even further? Kimmel's eyes darted to the audience, searching for an out. But the room was a powder keg, split between cheers for Eastwood's defiance and murmurs of support for the host. He forced a laugh, trying to reclaim the stage. All right, Clint, you're coming in hot tonight, he said, his voice strained but still clinging to that late-night charm. I'm just asking questions, man. You're the one turning this into a debate club. The crowd chuckled nervously, but Eastwood wasn't buying it. He shifted in his seat, his weathered hands gripping the armrests like he was ready to stand. Questions? He said, his tone dripping with scorn. That's what you call it? You lob insults and call 'em questions. You think I'm some rookie who's gonna sit here and take it? The audience gasped, sensing the shift. Kimmel, now visibly sweating under the studio lights, tried to pivot again. Come on, Clint, nobody's insulting you. I'm just saying, Trump's got some policies that rub people the wrong way. Like, the whole trans bathroom thing. You're telling me you're cool with that? It was a desperate move. Kimmel leaning into a hot-button issue to rally his base in the crowd. But Eastwood was ready, his voice steady and sharp. You keep circling back to this, don't you? Bathrooms, sports, whatever. You want to paint Trump as some bigot, but you're dodging the real issue. He's trying to protect people, keep things fair. You got a problem with fairness, Jimmy? The crowd erupted, some clapping for Eastwood's bluntness, others shouting in protest. Kimmel raised his hands, trying to calm the chaos. Whoa, let's not get it twisted. I'm all for fairness, Clint. But when Trump's out there saying trans people can't use the bathroom they identify with, that's not fair. That's cruel. Eastwood shook his head, his eyes locked on Kimmel like a gunslinger in a standoff. Cruel? You want to talk cruel? How about the parents who want their kids safe in locker rooms? How about the women who want a level playing field in sports? You think their concerns don't matter? You think Trump's just making this up for kicks? Kimmel opened his mouth, then closed it, clearly thrown. The audience was a mix of cheers and boos now, the energy chaotic. He tried to pivot to humor. Okay, Clint, I see you're passionate. Maybe we should get you on a debate stage instead of a movie set. The line got a few laughs, but Eastwood wasn't amused. Don't patronize me, Jimmy, he snapped, his voice cutting through the noise. You brought this up, not me. You want to talk about my film, I'm game. But you keep dragging us into this mud, and I'm not going to let you slide with half-truths. The tension was suffocating now. The band silent, the crew frozen. Kimmel, sensing he was losing the crowd, tried to double down. Half-truths? Clint, come on. The guy's been caught on tape saying wild stuff. You can't defend everything he does. Eastwood's smirk returned, but it was colder now, more dangerous. Caught on tape? You mean the same media that twists every word, he says. You think I trust your sound bites, Jimmy? I've been around too long for that. Trump's not perfect, but he's doing what he thinks is right for the country. You disagree, fine. But don't sit there acting like you've got the high ground. The audience roared, some standing, others shouting. Kimmel's face tightened, his usual cool unraveling. "Clint, I'm just reflecting what a lot of people feel. You're out here caping for a guy who's dividing the country." Eastwood leaned forward, his voice low but piercing. "Dividing? You think you're uniting people, Jimmy? Night after night you mock half the country, call them names and laugh while you do it. You think that's bringing people together? At least Trump's trying to fix things, not just point fingers from a comfy chair." Kimmel's jaw clenched, his hands gripping the desk. He was cornered, and he knew it. The crowd was eating it up, phones out, recording every second of the showdown. "All right, Clint," he said, his voice tight. "You've made your point. Let's talk about your movie. Tell us about this Western." But Eastwood wasn't letting go. "Oh, now you want to talk movies? After you spent 10 minutes trying to dunk on me? Nah, Jimmy. You wanted a fight, you got one." The crowd went wild, the energy electric. Kimmel tried to laugh it off, but his eyes betrayed his panic. "Fight? Clint, this is a talk show, not a boxing ring." Eastwood stood, towering over the set, his presence commanding. "You call it a talk show, I call it a setup. I came here to promote my work, not to be your punching bag." The audience gasped as he ripped off his mic, his voice booming. "You want to talk truth, Jimmy? Look in the mirror. You're not a host, you're a mouthpiece." With that, he turned and walked off, leaving Kimmel stunned and the crowd in a frenzy. The camera panned to Kimmel, alone at his desk, as the show cut to black. What would he do now? How would he spin this disaster? The studio lights dimmed as the show cut to black, but the audience was still buzzing, a chaotic mix of cheers, boos, and shocked whispers. Backstage, producers scrambled, headsets crackling with frantic orders, while Jimmy Kimmel sat frozen at his desk, the weight of Clint Eastwood's exit sinking in. The monitor showed the live feed had paused, leaving a static image of Kimmel's stunned face. He forced a weak smile, adjusting his tie, as the director's voice hissed in his earpiece. "We're back in 10, Jimmy. Say something, anything." The crowd, still reeling from Eastwood's mic drop moment, was restless, some chanting "Clint! Clint!" while others clapped for Kimmel, urging him to fire back. The countdown hit 0, and the cameras rolled. Kimmel leaned forward, his voice shaky but trying for levity. "Well, folks, that's why they call him Dirty Harry," he said, forcing a chuckle. The audience gave a scattered laugh, but the tension was thick. "I guess Clint's not a fan of tough questions. But, you know, this is a talk show, not a soapbox." The jab landed flat, and a few boos erupted from the back. Kimmel's smile tightened. He was losing them. "All right, let's move on," he said, flipping through his cue cards. "We've got a great show tonight. Stick around for—" But a voice from the crowd cut him off. "Bring Clint back." Kimmel's eyes darted to the heckler, his composure slipping. "Hey, pal, Clint's the one who walked, not me," he snapped, a bit too sharply. The audience murmured, sensing blood in the water. Backstage, the producers winced, knowing the clip was already going viral. On X, posts were exploding. "Eastwood just owned Kimmel," and "Jimmy got schooled," with thousands of likes pouring in. Kimmel, unaware of the online storm, tried to pivot to a scripted bit about his next guest, but the crowd wasn't having it. Another shout rang out. "You set him up, Jimmy!" The accusation stung, echoing Eastwood's parting shot. Kimmel's face reddened, his cool guy facade cracking. "Set him up? Come on. I asked about his politics, same as I do with everybody. He's the one who turned it into a cage match." The audience split again, some clapping, others jeering. Kimmel, desperate to regain control, leaned into the crowd. "Look, I get it. Clint's a legend. But you don't get a free pass just 'cause you're a tough guy. Trump's out there saying stuff that's divisive, and I'm supposed to just nod along?" It was a bold move, doubling down on the Trump angle, but it backfired. A woman in the front row stood up shouting, "You're the divisive one, Jimmy. Let the man talk about his movie." The crowd roared, some cheering her on, others booing. Kimmel's jaw clenched, his hands gripping the desk. "Okay, okay. Let's all take a breath," he said, his voice tight. "This is a comedy show, folks. I'm not running for office." But the damage was done. The audience was turning, and the energy felt more like a town hall than a late-night set. Backstage, a producer muttered, "We should have cut to commercial," but it was too late. Kimmel, rattled, tried to pivot again. "Let's talk about something fun. Who saw Clint's new Western? Looks pretty good, right?" The mention of Eastwood's film got a few claps, but it felt forced, like a plea for normalcy. Then, a new voice cut through the noise. "Jimmy, you owe him an apology." It was another audience member, a guy in a flannel shirt, standing with his arms crossed. The crowd erupted, some chanting, "Apologize! Apologize!" Kimmel's eyes widened, his smile gone. "An apology? For what?" "Doing my job," he shot back, his voice rising. "I asked questions. He didn't like 'em. That's not on me." But the crowd wasn't buying it. The chants grew louder, and Kimmel's earpiece buzzed with the director's voice. "Wrap it up, Jimmy, we're tanking." Kimmel stood, pacing behind his desk, a rare move for him. "All right, you want to talk about this? Fine. I respect Clint, always have. But when you come on my show and defend a guy who's been called out for transphobic racist stuff, I'm gonna push back. That's what I do." The audience split again, some clapping, others shouting him down. A woman yelled, "You pushed too far, Jimmy!" The accusation hit hard, and for a moment Kimmel looked genuinely shaken, like he was questioning himself. "Too far?" he said, almost to himself. "I'm just asking what half the country's thinking." The crowd's reaction was a mix of cheers and boos, but the momentum was shifting against him. On X, the clips of Eastwood's walkout were racking up millions of views, with comments like, "Kimmel got what he deserved" and "Clint's a boss," trending worldwide. Kimmel, still on air, tried one last pivot. "Look, we're going to keep this show moving. Clint's got his movie, I've got my jokes, and you've got a great night ahead." But the words felt hollow, and the audience's applause was tepid. As the band struck up a transition tune, Kimmel sat back down, his face a mask of forced calm. The camera lingered on him, capturing the unease. What would happen when the show cut to break? Would Kimmel try to spin this, or was the damage too deep? The band's upbeat tune faded as the show cut to a break, but the studio was anything but calm. The audience buzzed, some still chanting for Eastwood, others arguing among themselves. Kimmel, slouched at his desk, wiped sweat from his brow, his earpiece alive with producers shouting conflicting advice. "Apologize, Jimmy." "No, double down." He stared at the cue cards, now scattered across the desk, and muttered to himself, "This wasn't supposed to happen." On X, the firestorm grew, with clips of Eastwood's mouthpiece line trending under hashtags like "Yo Kimmel Owned" and "Clint Unchained." Millions were watching, and the narrative was clear. Kimmel had picked a fight with the wrong icon. Backstage, the chaos was palpable. Crew members whispered about Eastwood, who'd left the building without a word, his team already posting a cryptic X update. Clint came to talk movies. Some hosts can't handle the truth. The post had thousands of retweets, fueling the online frenzy. Kimmel's team, meanwhile, was in damage control, drafting a statement to spin the disaster. But as the break ended and the cameras rolled, Kimmel knew he had to face the crowd alone. The applause was lukewarm, the energy hostile. He stood, forcing a grin, and launched into his next segment, a bit about viral pet videos. "All right, folks, let's lighten things up," he said, his voice strained. "Who doesn't love a cat in a cowboy hat?" The joke fell flat. The audience, still reeling from the confrontation, wasn't ready to move on. A man in the back shouted, "You dodged Clint's points." Scattered boos followed, and Kimmel's smile wavered. "Hey, come on, we're having fun here," he said, but his eyes betrayed his panic. The director's voice crackled in his ear. "Jimmy, address it, or we're done." Kimmel took a deep breath, tossing his cue cards aside. "All right, fine," he said, facing the crowd. "You want to talk about Clint? Let's talk. He came on. I asked about his politics. He got heated, and he walked. That's the deal. I'm not the bad guy here." The crowd's reaction was brutal, half booing, half shouting for Eastwood. A woman yelled, "You pushed him, Jimmy! Own it!" Kimmel's face tightened, his cool unraveling. "Pushed him? I asked what everyone's thinking. Trump's got a record. Transphobic policies, border wall drama. You think I'm going to ignore that?" But the audience wasn't swayed. Another voice rang out. "Clint called you out, and you choked." The accusation stung, and Kimmel snapped. "Choked? I'm still here, aren't I? He's the one who ran off." The crowd gasped, the hostility peaking. On X, the quote was already spreading, with comments like, "Kimmel's digging his grave," and "Clint won this round." Kimmel, sensing the show slipping away, tried to pivot. "Look, I respect Clint's career, his films. But when you defend someone like Trump, you're gonna get pushback. That's my job." The audience split again, some clapping, others jeering. A producer signaled to wrap, but Kimmel wasn't done. "You know what? Maybe I was tough on him, but this is my stage, and I'm not gonna apologize for asking hard questions." The defiance got a few cheers, but the boos were louder. The band played a hasty transition, and Kimmel sat, visibly shaken, as the show limped to its next segment. As the night ended, the fallout was undeniable. Kimmel's team released a statement claiming the confrontation was spirited but respectful, but the internet wasn't buying it. X was ablaze with memes of Eastwood's walkout, his mouthpiece line plastered over images of Kimmel's stunned face. Eastwood's film, meanwhile, saw a surge in buzz, with fans praising his no-nonsense stance. "Clint's still got it," one X-post read, with millions of likes. Kimmel, back in his dressing room, scrolled through the posts, his jaw tight. A producer knocked, offering a weak, "You did what you could, Jimmy." But he knew the truth. He'd been outmatched. The next day, Eastwood appeared on a podcast, calm and unapologetic. "I went to talk about my work," he said. "Kimmel wanted a circus. I don't play those games." The clip went viral, cementing his triumph. Kimmel, meanwhile, addressed the clash on his next show, trying to laugh it off. "Well, I guess I learned not to mess with Clint," he said, but the audience's tepid response told the story. The confrontation had shifted the narrative. Eastwood emerged as the principled legend, Kimmel as the host who overplayed his hand. On X, the consensus was clear. Clint had walked away, but he'd won the war. The story closed with Hollywood, talking, not about Kimmel's jokes, but about Eastwood's unwavering grit, a reminder that some icons don't bend, no matter the stage.